I set out for my family's cabin a few months ago. I thought it would help me relax from my busy job as an environmental scientist. The cabin is old and creaky, surrounded by tall pine trees. It sits on a quiet lakeshore, reminding me of my childhood. When I arrived that Friday evening, everything felt familiar, yet strange. I settled in, trying to push away the city stress. My plan was to read a book and enjoy the quiet. But then a thunderstorm rolled in. The rain pounded down hard, and lightning flashed across the sky. I heard it, the first loud thump from the attic above. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just an animal. Maybe a raccoon had gotten in. I looked out at the lake and the waves looked strange. I saw shapes in the water, but I couldn't tell what they were. A massive clap of thunder shook the cabin, and the power flickered. My heart raced. I thought about checking the attic, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Later that night, I got ready for bed. As I passed the attic door, I noticed it was slightly open. I could have sworn I had locked it. Chills ran down my spine. I went back to my room, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But then the thumping came again. It was louder this time. It felt like someone or something was moving around up there. My heart pounded harder. I felt frozen, but knew I had to see what was happening. I grabbed my flashlight and slowly approached the attic door. It creaked as I pushed it open. "Hello, is anyone there?" I called out. My voice echoed back, and I stood there clutching the flashlight, hoping for a response. There was nothing. The attic was dark. I shined my light around, catching glimpses of old furniture and dusty boxes. I felt uneasy but pressed on. Suddenly, another loud thump came from behind me, and I jumped. I spun around but found nothing there. I was trembling. I bolted out of the attic, slamming the door shut behind me. That night, sleep was nearly impossible. The storm raged outside, and the shadows in my room seemed to twist and dart. I couldn't stop thinking about the things I'd seen on the lake. What were they? I promised myself I'd find out the next morning, but morning came, and I woke up feeling exhausted. I told myself it was all just my mind playing tricks in the storm. But as I went about my day, those weird happenings nagged at me. I tried to push it all aside while I made coffee. That's when I heard it again. Another thump from the attic, louder and more deliberate this time. I wasn't alone. I felt cold dread sink in. I thought about going back up there, but something in me screamed to run. What was living in that space above me? I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. That cabin held too many memories. I sat there, frozen with fear, knowing I had to face whatever was up there. But deep down, I was terrified of what I might find. I couldn't shake the dread building inside me as I sat in the kitchen. I tried to drown it out with coffee, but the thumping from the attic interrupted me again. This time, it was insistent, rhythmic, like someone was pacing up there. My heart raced. I felt trapped in my own skin. After a moment, curiosity wrestled with fear. What if it was just an animal? What if it was something more? I set my coffee mug down and took a deep breath, steeling myself for confrontation. I grabbed the flashlight again, fingers trembling. If there was anything up there, I had to know. I opened the attic door and slowly climbed the rickety stairs. Each creak echoed in the silence, heightening my anxiety. When I reached the top, the attic was dark and still. I turned the flashlight on, the beam cutting through the gloom. Old trunks and cobwebs filled the space, but no sign of whatever had been making those sounds. Just as my pulse began to calm, I heard it. A scratching noise coming from the far corner, muffled and frantic. My heart skipped. "Is anyone there?" I called out again, more uncertain this time. It didn't respond, but whatever it was, it felt alive. I took a step forward, the floorboard groaning under my weight. Then I noticed something unusual. A box was tipped over, its contents scattered. Among them was a faded photograph. I bent down to pick it up, and that's when I saw it. A blurry figure in the background, half hidden in the trees by the lake. I squinted at the photo, studying the face that seemed to peer out from the shadows. It felt like someone was watching me even then. The scratching noise stopped abruptly. My stomach twisted with unease and I glanced around the attic. Suddenly the air felt thicker, as if I wasn't alone. A chill ran up my spine. I tried to rationalize what I felt, but the unease intensified. Then I saw it again. Movement near the window. A shadow darted across the thin barrier. I turned the flashlight, but it was just the branches swaying wildly, thanks to the storm's resurgence. That's when I caught a reflection in the darkness, not from my flashlight, but a soft glow coming from the window. I approached cautiously, heart racing. As I drew near, the light flickered and vanished. Had I imagined it? My instinct screamed at me to step back, to get out of that attic. I turned on my heel, but before I could leave, I felt something brush past me. A gust of cold air rushed by, and I froze. I didn't dare look back. And then I heard it clear as day. "Help me." A faint whisper floated through the air, a voice echoing with urgency. Without thinking, I bolted down the stairs, my pulse pounding in my ears. I slammed the attic door shut behind me and leaned against it, panting. The voice made my skin crawl. I thought about the photograph. Who was in it? Was that why I'd come to the cabin? To confront whatever haunted this place? A crash outside made me jump. I raced to the window, and what I saw made my breath catch. The shapes on the lake were closer now, moving in a way that made me uneasy. I gripped the sill, heart pounding. What was happening? I knew I had to investigate, but now uncertainty bubbled into fear. I found myself questioning my choices. Maybe I shouldn't have come here at all. The storm intensified, and I felt the walls of the cabin closing in on me. I was sure of one thing. I wasn't safe anymore. The thunder crashed again, shaking the window panes, and I realized I couldn't ignore the shadows on the lake any longer. I forced myself to breathe, pushing down the dread pooling in my stomach. Maybe it was just my imagination, fueled by fear and the storm. Still, a part of me demanded answers. I grabbed my jacket and stepped out into the storm, the rain instantly soaking me to the skin. The path to the lake was overgrown and treacherous, but I pressed on. Every gust of wind sent a chill down my spine. I felt watched, as if the very trees were leaning in, eager to hear my every thought. As I neared the water's edge, the flickering shapes came into focus. They were figures, ill-defined but human-like, moving in an odd, syncopated dance. I hesitated, heart thudding as the curiosity began to falter. Had I just made a colossal mistake? "Hello," I called out, my voice swallowed by the wind. The figures stopped instantly, turning to face me. That's when the realization sank in. They were not just moving, they were pointing. Not at me, but behind me. I spun around, every nerve in my body screaming that I was not alone. The wind howled louder and I caught a glimpse of movement near the cabin. It was indistinct, but there was definitely something, or someone, there. Panic flared in my chest. I needed to get out of the storm. I dashed back to the cabin, feeling the weight of unseen eyes on my back. My hand shook as I gripped the doorknob, and before I could think too much, I flung the door open and slammed it shut behind me. I leaned against it, ears straining for any sound. Silence wrapped around me, thick and oppressive. Then I heard it again. "Help me." That same whisper sliced through the silence, more urgent now. My pulse quickened. I couldn't ignore it. With trembling hands, I retrieved the photograph from my jacket pocket, holding it up to the dim light. The figure in the trees was hauntingly familiar, but I couldn't place it. It felt as if it were tethered to the very voice calling for help. "Who are you?" I whispered into the stillness, half expecting an answer. The whisper seemed to fade away, replaced by the crash of thunder outside. Suddenly a loud bang echoed from the attic, jolting me. The memory of the scratching rushed back. What if whatever was up there had followed me down? I could feel the chill settling deep within me, tightening its grip. Deciding against running back upstairs, I instinctively grabbed a heavy flashlight and a kitchen knife. I listened intently as I moved through the cabin, the storm pounding on the roof like a relentless drum. The shadows seemed to dance in the corners. I reached the attic door, hesitating. Somewhere in my gut, I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. But just as I laid a hand on the doorknob, the lights flickered and went out completely, plunging me into darkness. Panic surged. and I felt an icy breath on my neck. I spun around, but no one was there. The darkness tugged at the edges of my mind. I turned the flashlight on, but the beam caught nothing but empty air. Then I heard the whisper again, now more insistent. "I'm here." With heart racing and thoughts jumbled, I knew I had to confront whatever awaited me in that attic. But as the wind whipped outside, shaking the walls, I couldn't help but wonder. What if I wasn't the one in control anymore? The darkness felt alive, swirling around me as I stood frozen at the attic door. My flashlight beam flickered unsteadily, casting long shadows that twisted like fingers reaching for me. I could still hear the whisper, "I'm here." But this time it sounded closer, almost inside my head. With a deep breath, I gripped the doorknob. It felt cold and slick under my palm. I twisted it slowly, half expecting the door to resist me. Instead, it creaked open with a painful groan, revealing the unlit attic beyond. I raised the flashlight, illuminating dusty old boxes and cobwebs hanging like heavy curtains. The air was stale, almost thick enough to cut. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back. Still, the whisper echoed, urging me onward. "Help me." I took a step inside, the floorboards creaking underfoot. The beam of light caught something at the corner of the attic. I squinted, my heart pounding as I edged closer. It was a trunk, just sitting there, quietly calling to me. It wasn't the only thing that unnerved me. Strands of gray hair had caught on a nail near the edge of the trunk. I wondered if it was possible that someone had been up here. I didn't want to think about what it meant. My hands trembled as I crouched beside the trunk and lifted the latch. The sudden silence was deafening, and I felt the weight of 100 eyes on me. The trunk popped open. Inside it was filled with old clothes and faded photographs. I rifled through it, my fingers trembling. As I sifted through the items, I found a tattered journal at the bottom. It looked ancient, the leather cover cracked and worn. Opening it, I squinted at the yellowed pages. The writing was erratic, as if the author had been rushed. It mentioned a storm much like the one raging outside. My eyes fell on a name repeated several times. Clara. "Who is Clara?" I whispered, but no answer came. Thunder rumbled outside louder than before, vibrating through the floor and echoing in my chest. The air grew colder, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the attic, slamming the door shut behind me. I jumped, the flashlight flickering violently, and panic surged again. I turned to find the door, but my heart sank as I realized it wouldn't budge. The whisper returned, now sharp and clear. "Help me. Please." My breath quickened. I hadn't just come to investigate. Now I was trapped, missing whatever connection was between the voice and the figure in the lake. It was almost as if Clara had awakened something in me, the need to uncover the truth. Just then, the journal slipped from my hands, fluttering across the wooden floor as if guided by unseen currents. I crouched down, desperate not to lose it, but it stopped suddenly beside the trunk, and in that moment, I caught sight of a flicker of movement behind me in the shadows. That's when I saw it. A figure barely distinguished standing against the back wall watching me. My heart slammed against my rib cage. My skin prickled. I needed to get out, but I couldn't move. "Who are you?" I forced out, my voice trembling, knowing I was out of my depth. The figure stepped forward, and in the beam of my flashlight, I recognized her. It was Clara. Clara stood just a few feet from me, her pale face framed by dark, tangled hair. I had never seen her before, but everything about her felt unnervingly familiar. I wanted to scream, to turn and run, but my feet felt like they were glued to the floor. The whisper was gone, replaced by a tight silence that pressed down like a weight. "Help me," Clara repeated, her voice raspy and soft yet urgent. The desperation in her eyes disarmed me. I wanted to believe I could do something for her. But what? I barely understood why I was here, let alone how I could help a ghost. "Why? How?" I stammered, forcing words out as fear coursed through me. "What do you need?" Her gaze fell to the trunk beside me. "Find it," she said, her voice fading with each word. "The truth. In the storm." Then she took a step back, fading into the shadows, her figure flickering like a candle at the end of its wick. "Wait!" I cried, reaching out, but she was gone. The attic felt emptier now, and I could barely breathe. I turned back to the trunk, the journal still sitting there, open to the page that mentioned Clara. I knelt again, flipping through the pages. My fingers raced over the ink, searching for answers. The last entry mentioned something about a necklace, something Clara had lost during the storm. It was supposed to hold a secret, a connection to someone important. I looked around the trunk and its contents again, desperately hoping it would lead me to her. Thunder rumbled low and menacing, sending a chill through me. I bit my lip, illness clenching my stomach. I felt the storm outside more than ever, like it was tearing at the cabin. I scanned the attic for anything resembling a necklace, but all I found were more clothes, more memories trapped in forgotten fabric. Just then, something caught my eye, a glint of metal peeking out from under a pile of fabric at the bottom of the trunk. I dug deeper, revealing an ornate locket, surprisingly intact despite its age. I held it up, heart racing. The tiny design on the front resembled a stormy sea, waves crashing against each other. As I fumbled to open it, the temperature in the attic plummeted. My breath came out in foggy puffs, each one a reminder that the danger was real, that something was coming. I pulled the locket open, revealing a photo. A woman who looked eerily like Clara, smiling brightly. But the woman was not alone. Standing beside her was a man, his expression serious, eyes dark. I felt a jolt, as if I should know him. But before I could think any further, the shadows in the attic thickened, swirling ominously. The door rattled against its frame as if something were trying to get in. Then everything went dark. I blinked, trying to adjust to the sudden darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to stand. The locket slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the wooden floor. There was no light, only a heavy silence that wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. I fumbled for the trunk, but somehow, even knowing where I was, everything felt off. The air shifted, cold and electric, and I sensed a presence lurking just beyond my vision. I took a breath, praying it would calm me. Instead, it filled my lungs with dread. "Clara?" I called, hoping my voice would cut through the darkness. There was no response. My fingers brushed the edge of the trunk, and I felt around for the locket. I needed it. Whatever connection it had to Clara, I needed to understand. Then, in the stillness, a faint light flickered to life, illuminating the edges of the attic. My relief was short-lived, as I realized the light was not coming from any lamp. It arose from a figure standing at the foot of the stairs. I focused, squinting, and my stomach dropped. It was the man from the photo, his serious expression intact. He looked exactly as he did in the locket. Fear gripped me, and I backed away slowly, bumping into the trunk. "Who are you?" I broke the silence, my voice shaky. He stepped forward, the light around him pulsating like a heartbeat. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "Why?" I'm looking for Clara." My voice felt stronger now, desperate to hold on to the thread of what I was experiencing. The man's eyes narrowed. "Clara is in danger, and so are you. The storm unearths things better left buried." The locket lay forgotten behind me, but its weight felt palpable. "What do you mean? I need to help her." "The truth is the storm," he said cryptically. "Only you can find it. But beware. What you uncover can twist reality. There are forces at play, forces you cannot understand." I felt the anxiety creeping back in, an urgency building. "What forces? Tell me what I need to do." He didn't answer. Instead, he glanced toward the window where flashes of lightning illuminated the room. Panic surged through me. I didn't want to be trapped with an apparition no matter how much I wanted answers. As I tore my eyes away from him, I caught sight of shadows writhing against the far wall, coalescing into darker shapes, the presence I had felt earlier. I turned back to the man, but he was gone, leaving behind only the flickering light. My breath quickened as the sounds of thunder grew louder, shaking the cabin. I stumbled toward the window, desperate to see what was happening outside. That's when I saw it. A dark figure moving through the trees, stepping from shadow to shadow, drawing closer to the cabin. I leaned against the chilly glass, my heart racing. I knew I had to leave, but I also knew I couldn't abandon Clara. My mind raced. If the answer lay in the storm, I was going to have to face it no matter what awaited me. Then a loud crash filled the room. Something had broken through. I spun around, my pulse pounding in my ears. The noise was deafening, reverberating through the attic like a cannon blast. I felt the wall behind me, grounding myself, but fear surged up my spine. The shadows against the wall twisted and swirled, seeming to respond to the chaos. "What's happening?" I breathed, more to myself than anyone else. I took a hesitant step backward, my eyes darting around the dimly lit room. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. The trunk, my trunk, had burst open. The wood splintered, and the lid hung loosely, as if something forceful had wrenched it apart. I knew I hadn't done it. I hadn't even touched it since I arrived. A dread-filled curiosity pulled me closer. I hadn't intended to investigate, but my legs moved as if they had a mind of their own. My heart raced. What had I been keeping in there? Memories, old clothes, some keepsakes from my childhood. But now it felt like anything could have been stored away. Secrets, darkness. Clara's secrets. I crept toward the trunk, every step echoing my uncertainty. The remnants of the storm rattled the cabin, shaking the very foundation beneath me. I took a deep breath and leaned over to peer inside. The light from before flickered weakly, casting shadows on my face. As I looked down, I gasped. Among the crumpled clothes and dusty knickknacks, I saw a glint of something metal, more than just the locket. I reached in and pulled it out, fingers trembling. It was a small key, cold and heavy. My mind raced. What could it unlock? Then suddenly a loud crash echoed from below. The sound ripped through the cabin and the floor shook underfoot. I stumbled back, almost dropping the key. "What now?" I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. The noise was followed by another, this one a low growl that vibrated through the air, sending a chill racing down my spine. Something was definitely in the house. I pressed up against the trunk, feeling its rough surface beneath my hands. I needed to make a choice. Stay hidden or find Clara and face whatever had come for us. I grabbed the locket off the floor, clutching it tightly in one hand, the key in the other. I could hear it moving downstairs now, a scraping, a shuffling that echoed up the stairway. Part of me screamed to escape, yet another part urged me to press forward. Staring into the shadows, I made my decision. I had to unlock the truth. If Clara was in danger, I wasn't going to let fear stop me. As I took a steadying breath, the attic door creaked open, slowly revealing an unnatural darkness beyond. That's when I heard a voice, a low whisper that curled through the air, chilling me to the bone. "You shouldn't have come here." I hesitated, a wave of instinct urging me to flee. But I stood my ground, clutching the key, determined to face whatever waited on the other side. I stepped through the attic door, propelled by a mix of fear and resolve. The air felt thicker than before, laden with an unsettling energy. I hesitated at the threshold, peering into the darkness. It was a void, a space that absorbed sound and light. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but I had come too far. With quaking hands, I clutched the key and the locket. I took a step forward, heart pounding in my chest. I was committed now. Whatever waited for me below, I was about to find out. As I crept down the narrow staircase, the wood creaked beneath my weight. Each echo felt like a warning. I paused halfway down, straining to listen. The growling continued, closer now. It was a low rumble, like thunder, but there was something distinctly menacing about it. "Clara," I whispered. The name felt heavy in my mouth. Where was she? I reached the bottom of the stairs and glanced into the dimly lit living room. Shadows danced wildly along the walls, making shapes of unknown horrors. The storm outside intensified, battering the cabin with a fierceness that seemed almost alive. I knew I had to move quickly. Underneath the sound of wind and rain, I heard another sound, a soft whimper. My heart leapt. It was coming from the back room. I turned towards it, glimpsing a flicker of light, a small lantern, barely illuminating the way. I pushed the door open, shivering as it groaned on its hinges. Inside, the room felt colder. A chill wrapped around me like a blanket soaked in ice. The flickering light revealed a small table pushed against the wall, papers strewn across it. One paper caught my eye. It had Clara's name on it, written in hasty, frantic scrawls. I moved closer, eyes darting over the words. They were notes, scribbled details of rituals, warnings about the forest, and specific mentions of keys. My key. My breath caught in my throat as realization hit. Clara had been looking for something. Something she might have found. Then, the growl grew louder, more pronounced, echoing through the idiosyncrasies of the cabin. An object fell off the table, clattering to the floor. I jumped back, heart racing. I needed to get out of there, but something held me in place. Was it curiosity? Fear? My eyes locked onto the door at the far end of the room, slightly ajar. The whispers had intensified, and I could almost hear Clara's voice mixed in with them. "Help me." I felt a tug in my gut. Without thinking, I raced to the door. I gripped the handle, trembling. Just as I was about to throw it open, a shadow darted past the doorway, and the growl intensified into a feral snarl. "Oh God," I whispered, backing away. The shadow reappeared, more defined this time, and with it came a wave of dread. I could see its eyes. The reflection glowed with an otherworldly fury. With the growl still echoing behind me, I made a split-second decision. "Clara," I shouted, hoping against hope that she could hear me. "Where are you?" Just then, a loud crash erupted from the back room, shaking the walls. The light flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. Panic set in as I stumbled back, my hands fumbling for the key in my pocket. Then, I felt something cold and wet brush against my arm. I froze, breath caught in my throat, realizing I was not alone anymore. Something was in the dark with me. I turned to run, but the sound of claws scraping against the floor stopped me in my tracks. I had to unlock the truth before it was too late. I gathered my bearings, instinct driving me forward. I couldn't let fear dictate my next move. The cold slickness against my arm sent chills down my spine, but I needed to know what lurked in the shadows. With the lantern extinguished, I reached for my phone, praying the screen would offer some comfort. The light flickered on, illuminating the immediate area. That's when I saw it. A glint of something sharp reflecting my light just beyond the threshold. My throat tightened. I stepped back, heart hammering. The creature reared its head, momentarily pausing in the dark. It had the shape of a dog, but its eyes burned a fiery orange, unblinking and full of malice. It growled again, low and menacing, and I pivoted on my heel, adrenaline coursing through me. I stumbled across the floor, trying to retrace my path from the back room. But the darkness was thick and alive. The growl echoed behind me, a reminder that time was running out. I grabbed the table to steady myself, my fingers brushing against the scattered notes. I had to remember Clara's warnings. The key was important. "Clara, where are you?" I gasped, my voice shaky. Just as I reached the door, a frantic whisper caught my ear. "Help!" My heart soared and sank at the same time. I had to find Clara. With a trembling hand, I yanked the door open, the hinges creaking ominously. I spilled into the hallway, the growl from the creature trailing behind me. My phone's light swept across the walls, revealing flashes of old photographs, faces I recognized but couldn't place. I ran toward the front door, but a flash of lightning lit up the entire cabin, revealing the creature blocking my escape. It lunged at me, teeth bared, jaws opening wide. I darted sideways, avoiding its snap. I had just enough time to notice another door at the end of the hall, the cellar door. A sudden risk surged through me. I could either fight or escape, but if Clara was in danger, I had to choose the latter. I sprinted toward the cellar, flinging the door open with a rush of desperation. The darkness felt thicker in the cellar, but at least I wasn't being pursued. I ducked inside and pulled the door shut, leaning against it to catch my breath. The growl seemed muffled now, but it lingered like a specter outside. If it couldn't sense me, I might have a chance. Crouching low, I scanned my surroundings. Old crates and jars filled the space, and a damp smell clung to the air. Among the clutter, I saw a wooden chest. It was locked, but my heart raced as I remembered the key in my pocket. Maybe Clara was wrong and I wouldn't find her right away. Maybe I could unlock whatever secrets this cabin held. I approached the chest, fingers trembling as I retrieved the key. Every second felt eternal as I prepared to insert it into the lock. Then, from the darkness, I heard a voice echoing softly. "Do not open it. Leave now." I froze. Who was that? Terror gripped me as the low, warning voice reverberated in my mind. My instincts screamed to flee, yet my curiosity pushed me to stay. What was this chest holding? What had Clara been searching for? With a deep breath, I clenched the key tightly in my hand, and a surge of determination propelled me forward. Ignoring the voice, I knelt beside the chest and inserted the key. It clicked into place with a satisfying sound. My heart raced as I turned it, feeling the rusted mechanism resist, before finally giving way. The lid creaked open, and I held my breath, peering inside. What I found sent a wave of unease through me. The chest was filled with old letters, and at the very top, a small, delicate locket caught the dim light. Quickly, I reached inside and grabbed it, knowing it could lead me deeper into Clara's mystery. I could feel my heartbeat echoing in my ears as I flicked the locket open. Inside was another photograph, this one depicting the same woman I'd seen before, Clara, and a young girl who looked just like her. As I marveled at the image, a deep growl echoed off the walls, jolting me back to my present reality. Whatever that creature was, it was still out there, and my time was running out. I could hear it scratching against the door, testing its strength as the air thickened with tension. "Clara!" I yelled, desperation towering over my fear. "Where are you?" A faint whisper cut through the din of the growl. "Find me. The cellar." It was her voice, filled with urgency, but also a haunting melancholy. My breath hitched in my throat. What did she mean? I glanced back at the chest, at the document spilling out, but there was no time for that now. I had to find a way to help her. I pushed aside the fear and steeled myself. I needed clarity amidst the chaos. I took the locket and stuffed it into my pocket alongside the previous one. The whispers swirled around me like flickering shadows, urging me to escape. I moved away from the chest and crept toward the back of the cellar. My breath caught in my throat as the growl intensified. The door rattled again, and I knew it wouldn't hold much longer. I pushed my way through the clutter, seeking any exit beyond the growling menace. My eyes scanned desperately, falling on a narrow passageway at the far end of the room, half hidden behind an old barrel. I hurried toward it, tearing down the cobwebs that clung to me as I moved. My heart raced louder than the storm outside, echoing like a war drum. Just as I reached the passage, the cellar door burst open, and the monstrous creature came barreling in, dark shadows pooling around it like smoke. "Clara!" I shouted one last time, pouring every ounce of energy into her name. Without thinking, I twisted into the passageway, squeezing through just in time to hear the beast's snarl echo behind me. I turned to see the doorframe splinter, shards flying as it tried to follow me. The passage was dark, but I broke into a sprint, fueled by adrenaline and the fading echoes of Clara's voice guiding me. I had to reach her. I'd come too far to turn back now. Even as I ran, questions raced through my mind. What had Clara been searching for? What had unleashed this creature into the world? And were the storms of the past and present connected to her story? I stumbled through the passage until I emerged into a small room, filled with crumbling artifacts and dust. Among the clutter, candles flickered faintly, casting flickering shadows that danced on the walls. In the center of the room was a small pedestal, with something glimmering atop it. In that moment, I felt a pull, an undeniable connection pulling me toward it. I hesitated only briefly before rushing toward the pedestal. As I reached out to touch the glimmering object, my fingers brushed against it. Suddenly, the room exploded with light, flooding my senses. I was pulled into a whirlwind. Images spiraled around me, storms raging, Clara standing at the edge of the lake, a necklace glowing with power at her throat, a figure behind her, his eyes burning with intensity. "Clara!" I yelled, reaching out into the tempest. The light enveloped me, filling my mind and heart with vivid emotion. She was close. I could feel it. But then, just as quickly as it began, everything stopped. I found myself back in the cellar, breathless and disoriented, grasping the shimmering object tightly. Just outside, the growl echoed again, but now it was layered with a human-like voice that seemed to plead for release. "Help her," it intoned. The atmosphere shifted, uneasy and electric. I stood there, the weight of choices heavy on my heart. I realized I was not just seeking answers. I was caught in a deeper web, a struggle that transcended time and space. With a sudden burst of resolve, I made my decision. I would break the cycle. I took a deep breath and prepared for the unknown, knowing I had to choose how this story would end. Would I succumb to the darkness, or could I find a light within it? With Clara's name resonating in my heart, I whispered a promise to the shadows and stepped forward into the light, ready to confront whatever awaited me. As the heavy door at the entrance creaked open once more, the wind howled around me, weaving the tension of the storm into the very fabric of the cabin. No matter what lay ahead, I felt the pulse of something monumental in the air, a truth waiting to be uncovered. Only time would tell if I dared to pursue it.